Okay, so let's begin by wetting our page up. And since I want my background to be very light, I'm making it slightly wetter than I have in the past. And I want my blue to be pretty light as well. So in this tray up here, I'm not adding a lot of blue. I'm going to keep it very simple and very light. And you can barely even see it on the screen, and that's kind of the way we want it. We just want to make it appear as though you can barely see the horizon line, that it's a very bright, beautiful day, and we can add in more details later. With this piece in particular, we really want to try to get that golden spiral, and how we almost do it as well is use the negative space right here. We're kind of working our way around the piece in a spiral. And that means that I intentionally wanted this line right here to be diagonal. So it curves it around, leading you to here. So when we add our orange in at the bottom, keep that in mind. I'm just going to start here at the bottom and kind of pull it across. It's very orange. And what I kind of want to do is add a little bit more blue to my orange paint. This way, it's going to appear more sandy looking, a more neutral color. And I am not liking how vibrant it is at the moment. So I'm going to dry my paintbrush over here and pull some of that color up at the top here. Okay, I'm feeling like that's a little bit better. It's still brighter than I want, but much better. So next what we're going to do is add in our cave. And how I'm going to try to do this is start pretty loose and pretty light around where I want to shape this here, and then gradually make it darker as I go. I'm going to switch my paintbrush to a smaller flat brush, and I'm going to switch it to my number 4 flat brush. My cave is blue. Yeah, it is very dark. So I know what I'm going to have to do is add a lot of blue. I'm even going to take a little bit of this color that I had mixed below, which has the orange in it, and add it up here. It's always good to add some orange or the colors that are in your piece to every part of your painting, even if it's in a small degree, because that will show up and it will play with the rest of your painting. But this time I am going to add some black gouache to this mixture so I can start to darken it a lot more. Next, what I want to do is I want to keep this kind of exactly the way that it is, and then have a little bit less pigment on this side. So I'm going to add a little bit of water over here. And this is now where I'm going to start to figure out the shape of that cave circle. And I'm just going to start it here and work my way in towards the center. I'm kind of using my brush in these little rounded strokes now, trying to mimic the shape of boulders, rocks, the side of that cave. And again, we're not going for perfection. We're just laying in the basic shape at the moment. You may hear artists say blocking in. That is quite literally what we're doing right now, just blocking in our basic shapes. Now, as I begin to progress this cave, that is when I can start to go a little bit darker. And I do like in the original one where it appears that it's kind of overlapping a little bit here. So it kind of looks like you go in through the cave slightly at a diagonal, the opposite direction from here. And then you would kind of work your way in. So I'm going to kind of keep that motif. And finally in this corner, I'm going to make it pretty dark. It's almost black here, so I can kind of lighten that up a bit more. There's a big contrast between what's going on here. It doesn't look like it's layered yet. So my brush is dry, and what I can do at the moment is, because it is dry, I can pull up some of these areas that are bothering me a little bit and reshape it or soften. I really don't mind some of that texture of the brush. As you can see, it's kind of adding like these lines. The texture is kind of cool, and people are not going to pay attention to that too much because they're going to be focused on what is in the center of your image. So I might leave some of that texture in there. It gives it a nice, a little bit more realistic effect. The only thing I'm not too thrilled with at the moment is how this is fading into the light. What I like about this one is it's a little bit more brown. It's not a lot more brown, but it's enough where it is making a little bit of a difference. So I think I'm going to add a slight tinge of orange to the paint down here and add more water to it and see if I can use my round brush or maybe even a filbert to sort of soften the outermost. Now that is really brown, so let me go a little bit lighter. I'm only placing it on the edges where the light may be seen the most. Oops. Now I feel like it went a little bit too rough. It's a lot of like back and forth. There we go. That looks like it's starting to make more sense. Later on, I can always adjust and add more layers after it has dried. So I'm going to stop working on this for a little bit, let that dry, and if I need to make adjustments at the end, I can do that. For now, why don't we switch back to our number 4 flat brush, and we're going to add this brown, this beautiful brown triangle in the center here. And what we're trying to do is, again, like lead the eye around almost like a spiral. So let's see if we can find a good place for the triangle. It almost makes sense to be just slightly, I guess that would be center, but it looks off center because this side of the wall or the cave is creeping in more. That may work to our advantage. I don't want my paintbrush super wet for this, otherwise it's going to bleed. So let's just kind of add this in here. What a beautiful triangle we have here. Very sci-fi looking. All right. So the final thing that we're going to do is add a little bit of a shadow. If you notice here, I have the shadow kind of going in the same direction as that horizon line right here. And I just noticed something at the moment. We have this part of the image where it does appear that there's a little bit of ocean or something, like it's sitting on the edge of this cliff looking at a beautiful, this triangle is looking at the ocean. We don't have that yet here, and we haven't added it in. This can be a little bit tricky because we don't want to mess up things that we've already done. So why don't we just go in with a little bit of water only and put it in where we're going to add some blue in to make it appear as though there is ocean there. Adding a lot of water because we don't need it to be super vibrant. We just want a touch of it to make it appear as though there's some kind of waterscape happening here. And I'm going to dry my brush, just pat it here and pull some of that out now, especially at that horizon line. I don't want it to be, I want it to appear as though it's really hard to see where the horizon line and the sky meet. All right, so I did a pretty good job, although I do notice that it's slightly angled as well. Let me see if we can kind of even it out, make it slightly more horizontal than diagonal. It's definitely tricky to do it with an object in front now. That's why it's really good to kind of start with your background and then add your objects on top of it later. Good enough, I feel like. Okay, so let's add a little bit of a shadow. And what I'm going to do is take some of this brown that I've created, add it to the blue, kind of soften it down all the way down here. And we're going to kind of mimic that diagonal line that we have in our landscape, our little sandy hill. And it's very dark, So I'm going to pat my paintbrush and remove some of that, especially as it goes into the distance, because it's always going to be darker right where the subject is, like right where it meets the ground, and then fade lighter as it goes. So I'm adding a little bit of water to pull some of that back out. I'm going to try to blend that in a little bit more here. Let's take a look at what we've done so far and see if we can add any additional elements to really make this pop. And I think what I'm seeing at the moment is it could be a little bit darker here, especially around the outside, because they're not going to be paying attention to this, or at least we don't want them to be paying attention to this section. And what we can do to kind of make them not pay attention to it is darken it up and make sure there's nothing distracting to lead the viewer to want to be like, why is that so weird looking? I'm going to add a little bit of black to my paint and just sort of find any areas that are distracting. Maybe there's too much texture. And I'm going to actually pull some of that dark going this direction now. The more I can kind of lead the eye going that way, the better. Especially right here where it kind of overlaps. That'd be nice to define it just a little bit more, not too much though. All right, I kind of do feel like this is working really well now. It's almost like we're inside of a seashell, which is great because the seashell is the epitome of the golden spiral, where it's really quite literally leading you all the way around, including this negative space right here, to our main beautiful triangle. All right, that is a good place to end for this one, and we're going to move on to the next one.